Hello, and welcome back to another episode of DevOps Quick Bites. Today, we're diving into something every Salesforce developer has grappled with at some point: unexpected errors in Apex code. So if you've ever been caught off guard by one of those nasty exceptions in production, this episode's going to be for you. So we're going to level your error handling game with some techniques to make your Salesforce apps not just functional, but incredibly resilient. So if that sounds good to you, stick around. Before we dig into Apex exceptions, let's quickly cover some of the best practices for error handling. Think of these as your golden rules, guiding stars that ensure smoother sailing in all your development. So rule number 1, always be specific. When you're catching exceptions, aim for specificity, a difficult word enough. Yes, it's tempting to catch every error with the generic exception class, but narrowing down to a DML exception or a query exception makes your error handling far more effective. Rule number 2, don't swallow exceptions. Catching errors and doing nothing with them is like catching a football and standing still, useless. Make sure that every exception is logged or handled so that we don't end up with those ghost errors that nobody can trace back. Rule number 3, keep the user experience in mind. For the user, a cryptic error message is frustrating. So translate those technical error logs into something helpful, user-friendly error messages for example. It's not just about fixing the bugs, but about keeping that user informed. So let's now talk about the Apex exception hierarchy, which is Salesforce's way of categorizing errors. At the top you've got the main exception class, and it branches out to more specific ones like DML exception or query exception. But why does this matter? Well, knowing the type of exception you're dealing with is like getting a GPS signal for where the problem is. For example, a DML exception means that something went wrong with your database operations, whereas a limit exception, well, that means Salesforce governor limits are not your friend today. But here's a pro tip: catch only what you can handle. If you catch the base exception class every time, you're missing the opportunity to handle errors more precisely. Now, there's going to be some times where those standard exceptions don't quite cover what you need. Maybe you've got a unique error scenario that Salesforce doesn't account for, and that's where custom exceptions can come in. Creating a custom exception is as simple as extending the built-in exception class. For example, if you're dealing with a payment gateway, you might create a payment gateway exception, and this way, when the exception crops up, it's crystal clear on what went wrong. Plus, it keeps your code super readable and maintainable. Now, logging is your best friend in error handling. Sure, you can build your own system, but why reinvent the wheel when there are open source tools like Nebula Logger? It's Salesforce native, open source, and a powerful way to centralize your logs. This framework can capture logs across your org and even track error patterns. So next time you're diagnosing an error, you won't be flying blind. You'll have a complete log history to guide you. Once you've got solid logging in place, it's time to think about dynamic error notifications. These are like smoke detectors in your app, alerting your team the moment something goes wrong. You can set up email alerts for critical errors, or use platform events to keep your devs and admins in the loop for non-urgent issues. Here's the trick: don't overwhelm your team with noise. Customize those alerts so that only the most relevant people get notified and only for the most serious of issues. Finally, let's chat about recovery. When errors happen, your app should have a strategy to recover gracefully. Maybe it's retrying the failed action or rolling back part of a transaction. This is where having a governance and clear recovery protocol shines. Define what errors are recoverable, when and how to retry, and how to keep your system stable while those errors are being addressed. Alright folks, we've covered the essentials of advanced error handling in Salesforce Apex, from exception handling best practices to custom exceptions, and even dynamic notifications and recovery protocols. With these strategies in place, your apps won't just catch errors, they'll handle them all with resilience and grace. If you're hungry for more Salesforce DevOps tips, Don't forget to check out the free course on testing at DevOps Launchpad that I've put in the comments. And don't forget also to subscribe for more DevOps Quick Bites. In the meantime, thanks for watching and happy coding. Bye for now.